Buenas noches, Rafael.
Buenas noches, profesora. Buenas noches, profesora. Buenas noches, estudiantes. En la noche de hoy pues damos inicio a nuestra sesión número 9 de Interpretación Simultánea con la profesora Olga Salazar. Profesora, pasa a compartir los parámetros de la sesión. Estudiantes, estos son los parámetros de las sesiones por videoconferencia. Las sesiones se graban, o sea que podemos verlas nuevamente en la plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor siguiendo su micrófono y puedan activarlo cuando quieran hacer consultas o aportes con el permiso del docente. Le pedimos que mantengan su cámara activa, de no poder hacerlo enviar sus excusas por el chat de Zoom, o de lo contrario serán retirados de la sesión y les serán restados puntos del aire o valoración del docente. Pero como moderador es apoyar y facilitar en la parte técnica. La consulta la hacemos en el chat personal o general. Les exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sesión. Listo, profesor.
Gracias, Rafael. Voy a esperar 5 minutitos para ver si aparecen mis estudiantes.
Profesor, profesora, dígame.
Okay, hello everyone. Jacqueline, you have some assignment that you have to hand in as soon as possible because this is the last class. So I just see that you have just one assignment from model part 1. So I need you to complete all the assignment, okay? As soon as possible. Because remember that all the assignments are summative grades. So if you miss one, you can lose the subject. So just be careful, okay? En dado caso que no entendiste, ya que por si acaso, de las asignaciones que he evaluado, he visto creo que es una o dos tuyas, pero son del primer módulo. Y ya estamos terminando el módulo 5, entonces trata de completar todas las asignaciones para que estés al día. Recuerda que cada asignación tiene un puntaje.
Buenas noches.
¿Cómo estás, mami?
Bien, esta semana se las envió.
Dale, mi amor. Acuérdate que tú siempre que entras a clase, pues siempre estás. Entonces me daría mucha pena que te quedaras, pues que no pasaras. Nada
Sí,
más ponte al día.
ok.
Dale, mi amor. Okay, so for today we are going to talk about consecutive interpreting. Remember that this type of interpretation is when you have to translate, but the one who is speaking, they may like a stop. So you can translate the conversation. Es la más sencilla de todas porque la persona habla, se detiene y la otra persona traduce. Es, es sumamente sencillo. And in this style or interpretation, you can use some technique like note-taking technique that we have studied already. So it's really nice. Okay, let's continue. Mm. So consecutive interpreting is the most popular type of interpretation work. In consecutive interpreting, the interpreter converts the word into the target language after the speaker delivers one or two sentences. The speaker pauses and waits for the interpreter to convey the message before continuing with their speech. Okay, let's see a video about this, but I have them in my, wait a minute. So because I have some trouble with copy, so I download the video and then
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen
I will share with you. Here we go.
what happened, please?
¿Puede
¿Ves el video y lo puedes escuchar?
Sí, profesora.
Perfecto.
decirle a las señoras y señores qué fue lo que sucedió, por favor?
estábamos sentados afuera echándonos unos tragos, fumando, usted sabe, haciendo cosas que no deberíamos estar haciendo en realidad. Estábamos sentados allá atrás comiendo plátanos y otras bobadas.
We were sitting there, we were drinking, we were smoking, we were doing things that we weren't supposed to be doing. We were sitting back there having plantains and other stuff.
Would you please be specific? Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen what you were smoking?
Entre en detalle, por favor. Dígale a las señoras y señores qué es lo que estaba fumando.
Estábamos fumando marihuana. Yo estaba fumando con unos amigos y acababa de salir del trabajo porque salí un poquito más temprano ya que yo soy capataz.
We were smoking marijuana. I was smoking with some friends. I had gotten out of work a little early because I'm the foreman.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen what happened from that point forward?
So as you see, the interpreter wait for the speaker to talk, and then she interpreted the sentences in the same way that he speak, but in the target language. We also have a cell phone consecutive interpreter. We have medical interpretation as well. Another one, remote interpretation as well. So this is place when you can use consecutive interpreter. Let's continue. A minute. A minute. Okay. So consecutive interpreting is the most popular type of interpretation word. In consecutive interpreter, the interpreter convert. This is one that I have already read. Let's continue. So in consecutive interpreter, the linguist has time to write down note. Remember the technique, note-taking technique. So they do not have to remember everything that the speaker says. This is the big difference from simultaneous interpretation, when you have to remember everything he or she has said. So because of the start and stop of the delivery of a speech or presentation, the meeting or a small conference can last longer. Yes. Okay. Requirement of consecutive interpretation service. Consecutive interpretation service does not need many technical type of equipment like headphones, audio consoles, or microphones, and soundproof booth. What the interpreter need are pencil or pen, a notebook or notepad. Often interpret the word alone, and he or she just need to be close to the one who is going to be the client or the boss. And of course, close to the one who is going to be speaking and then interpreting. Okay, the interpretation service is available for seminars with a limited number of participants, business mirroring classes, and bilingual meeting. Typically, the audience is smaller compared to a large conference that use simultaneous interpretation service. So this is another big difference. Experience, cultures, and personal skill are the right ingredients for the interpreter that everybody need or want. So let's talk about the essential quality of the professional consecutive interpreter. So the consecutive interpreter and the simultaneous conference interpreter share some essential requirements of the interpretation job, including the need to fully understand the language and the subject matter, to listen carefully to words and meanings, resisting well to cerebral stress, and deploy rapidly and optimally every bit of their intellectual ability. So the two roles, however, differ in at least two aspects. The contemporaneity of oral translation, which is characteristic of simultaneous and conference interpreting, the direct personal interaction which is missing in the simultaneous and conference interpretation, but perhaps at unconscious level, and the duration of the service. Remember that in simultaneous interpretation, you can have just 30 minutes to be an interpreter or to stay interpretation, and then you have to switch. So the consecutive interpreter, in fact, in sometimes requested to work for several consecutive hours, often many more when including dinners and in the age of the day during which we cannot even eat because it requested to work during such intervals too. And these situations are also very, tiring physically. It stresses a lot of. So, what to expect from a professional consecutive interpreter? Many people might be able to transform themselves into interpreter, but relatively a few of them could do it as a professional because in addition of the accent or certain innate talent, the lack of some of the essential skill and abilities, here they are. Okay, let's see. And then we can watch the video. Improvement of general behavior. The interpreter must be always behave in a professional manner, not only as far as knowledge of language and the object of the service himself are concerned, but also in looking and form. During the survey, he or she represents the companies, and any issue consequent to the interpreter behavior could damage in its reputation. So, his wiki abilities are possess an extensive vocabulary in both language. Above all, such knowledge should be readily available. On the other hand, when doing almost real-time translation, there is not much time to try to recollect words, and the client usually get irritated in front of excitation, of course. Some are surprised when at the beginning of the survey, the interpreter places an electronic dictionary and or a pre-packed notebook on the table. But this isn't, yes, I think that is not the best thing that you can do. Can you imagine you are going to work as a professional interpreter and you need a dictionary in order to translate a word? So this cannot be. Why, what happened? Okay. So have a good interpersonal skills such as a natural ability to do something useful when the other party isn't collaborating without, of course, ever wavering from the utmost professionalism. Even if the situation turned unpleasant, the interpreter's job itself is very tiring and stressful, and in an entire career meet people belonging to totally different cultures or social classes. It is not rare for interpreters to feel a sudden urge to jump ship in the middle of a session because of the extreme behavior or discourteous attitude of one of the party. Be able to keep one's cool even when the situation becomes heated. And know if and when one can't attempt to restore harmony with the help of a smile or a gap to overcome the impasse if the client is not able to achieve this alone. Never express their opinion in favor of either party. Because you have to be objective when you are working. This is for interpreting and this is for all the work that you maybe will have. So we have to be objective. With the exception of specific cases where the client express ask him to the otherwise, he might risk losing their trust because it can be assumed that their message is instrumentally misrepresenting in favor of the other party. Let me move this. Okay. A skill of a consecutive interpreter similar to a simultaneous interpreter. The consecutive interpreter must be fluent in the source or target or language. The server needs interpreters with experience and expertise in a specific subject, cultural knowledge, understanding on the nuances of the language, sharp memory, excellent speaking, and keen hearing are also necessary skills. Aside from memorization, and consecutive interpreters should be good at note-taking. The way the interpreter take note depends on the system each one of them developed through practice. Remember that when you are using note-taking technique, you use your own symbols, okay? Because you are the one who will need it. So you use whatever you want to use and whatever works for you. Training and their early experience. They can use initial symbol and abbreviation and whatever you want to use. One consecutive interpreter's note may or may not be legible to another interpreter because the symbol that you are using in your own note-taking makes sense, yes, for you. So the interpreter must maintain visual contact with the speaker instead of focusing on note-taking. They should keep their notes simple with only the basic information so they know will be easier to read but will help them summarize the message in their head. But the interpreter should include things that are harder to remember, such as name, numbers, and date. Okay, consecutive interpretation rules and tips. So, do not interrupt the speaker. The entire question or answer must be finished before you commence your interpretation. Do not attempt to mentally interpret it until you have heard the whole message. Do not add anything to the message. No addition of any kind are allowed. Do not omit from the message. Never. Do not leave out anything that was said out of the interpretation. Do not change the message. Do not make changes to the message received. So remember that you have to translate meaning by meaning, so you can miss anything. Take brief note, write down all concrete information such as names, description, colors, numbers, and years. No extraneous noises. Do not make any sounds such as well, okay, etc. Maintain the same register, raise or lower your level of sophistication of the language in accordance to what you have here. So we have to have the same level. Okay, speak loudly, clearly, and confidently. You must project professionalism at all times. Interpreters are fillers, as filler words utilized by the speaker, such as well, you know, okay. They must all be interpreted with equivalent filler words. Follow the story. Remember everything that has inspired in the story so that you may provide a better interpretation of oncoming events. Interpret all. Do not use more blank terms for vulgarisms. You must begin your interpretation no more than 7 seconds after the speakers has finished the question or the answer or the sentences. You may ask for a repetition if you need it. You must concentrate 100%. Visualize the message, sound, self-assumed, and pauses. Okay, let me show you an example of this one. Give me a moment. Give me a moment.
Consecutive.
Okay, let's see the video. It's a short one.
Interpreting. What is consecutive interpreting? Well, let's break it down. Consecutive means following one after the other in order or successive. Now, the other half of that phrase, interpretation, is the action of explaining the meaning of something or an explanation or way of explaining. From this, we can make out that consecutive interpreting is oral translation of speech or sign from a language into another. Consecutive interpreting is when a speaker pauses after a segment has been said to allow the interpreter to repeat what he said in the target language before proceeding. It can either be done sentence by sentence or in segments, in which case the interpreter will take notes so he can repeat what was said. In consecutive interpreting, the interpreter must wait for the speaker to finish a sentence or an idea and then renders the speaker's words into the desired language. Well-trained interpreters can render speeches of 10 minutes or more with great accuracy. Now, this raises another question. What's the difference between interpretation and translation? The main difference is the medium. The first is spoken, while the latter deals with text. The interpreter must translate spoken words simultaneously or seconds after the message has been conveyed. In consecutive interpreting, many times the interpreter must translate from the first language to the second and then back again from the second language to the first. The translator interprets written text into the target language, sometimes with the use of dictionaries and other resources. When is consecutive interpretation used? In court hearings, conference calls like customer support, etc., interviews, medical appointments, when a small number of people or personal touch is required, on a one-on-one exchange. Pros and cons. Pros: it's easy to set up and does not require any special equipment. It's portable and convenient, requires fewer interpreters, and no equipment or technical personnel are required. It is most helpful when only 2 languages are being used. It's cheaper than simultaneous interpreting. Cons: Meetings where there are more than one language is targeted. Simultaneous interpretation should be used. Doubles the time of the meeting. Does not happen in real time. The interpreter has to rely on his notes, which can sometimes lead to content distortion. Preparation. Techniques and skills used in consecutive interpreting: chunking, visualization, note-taking, and situational control, among others. The interpreter's objective is to convey every semantic element as well as tone and register, and every intention and feeling of the message that the source language speaker is directing to target language recipients. Modalities. On-site. This interpretation takes place with the interpreter in person. This is most common for public and social services. Telephone. This interpretation takes place through a phone call. It does not require the interpreter to be there, and he can be joined to a conference call. This is most common where both parties are already on the phone, like a customer service call. Video. This interpretation takes place through a video. The interpreter can see both parties through a video feed, and they can see him. This is most common when an on-site interpreter is not available and sign language is going to be interpreted. Well, that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this video and I was able to answer your question, what is consecutive interpreting?
So this is an eye review about,
Thank you for listening. If you like this video,
about everything we have taught about consecutive interpretation. Okay, let's continue. So, some advantages of using consecutive interpretation. Okay, advantage of using consecutive interpretation. Any type of interpretation service is important because it enables speaking different language to understand one another. The setup is more personal and intimate because the consecutive interpreter normally stays next to the speaker. Each form has its own advantage and disadvantage and fit different needs. So consecutive interpretation, for example, has its set of advantages such as the delivery of the interpretation is more emotional and fluent. The consecutive interpreter has more time to prepare for the nuances of the language and to choose the word carefully. The service does not need an audio, electronic, and technical equipment, as well as some proof interpreter booth. The quality of the translation is better because the interpreter has more time to prepare, to maybe to look for a word that he doesn't understand by the time. So it's easier if we compare it with simultaneous interpretation. So the tension of the audience increase as they can understand the message better, as well as see and hear the speaker's tone of voice and the body language of the speaker and the interpreter. The audience who can understand some of the words in the original language can appreciate the translation better. When do you use consecutive interpreter? Simultaneous interpreter is tailor fit for large seminars and conferences like the international meeting at the United Nations, in one-on-one discussion and a small meeting. It is more effective to use consecutive interpreter. The interpreter listens while the speaker relays the message and waits until the speaker pauses. The interpreter then delivers the message and the target language using their memory and note-taking, sure that the message is correct. Consecutive interpreting is applicable for different settings and industries that conduct informal and formal discussion, as we see in the video. So you can use consecutive interpreter for human resources meeting for multilingual staff, press and personal interview, business meeting, multilingual staff evaluation, conference among teachers and parents, meeting between attorney and claims, court deposition, medical interview and consultation, press briefing and conference, tours and travels. Unlike a huge seminar and conference where the setup is more structured and formal, the flow of the discussion in consecutive interpretation is akin to regular conversation. In each participant has the time to speak, pauses only to allow the interpreter to translate the conversation in another language. One of the downsides of consecutive interpretation is that it takes longer for the meeting to finish because each speaker has to wait for the interpreter to deliver the message. So you work more. However, the survey does not involve complicated planning. The vital thing is to use an interpreter who has the right industry background and experience to deliver the word correctly. For instance, for medical interpreter, the interpreter should have pure experience and particular fields. So you have to be a master in terminology and vocabulary if you want to do this kind of interpretation. It's the same when you want to do a consecutive interpretation with a lawyer. You have to master the terminology that they are going to use. So it is complicated as well. You have to master. You have to master any setup, any field. So they should know and understand the specific. That's what I said. They should know and understand the specific terminology used in the specific branch of medicine and translate the word into the language that the listener could easily understand. So let's see a review. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, we already see the video and the example that I have here. So I think that is all. Yes, it is. I thought I have another video for you, but it's not because this one is the same one that I have in my computer. Let me see. Let's do it in the old way. Give me a moment. Yes,
Llevamos
I check it out.
3 semanas sin agua. No hemos bebido.
It is the same that I have already watched. So, my dear, this is all for today. Remember that you have to complete the assignment, okay? Jacqueline, or Jacqueline, or Jacqueline. How do you pronounce your name? ¿Cómo pronuncias tu nombre, mami? Jacqueline tal cual.
Sí,
Ok, mi amor, pues. Trata de completarme las tareas que tienes en la plataforma, ¿ok? Por favor. Y a
sí,
tiempo.
profesora.
Dale, mami, pues. Cualquier cosa tú puedes escribirme ahí mismo en la plataforma y yo te contesto si tienes alguna duda. Pero no
Ok,
permitas que eso se te cierre porque después no las puedes realizar.
está bien. Profesor, una pregunta.
Dime, mi amor.
Es que ¿por qué no aparecen las pruebas?
¿No te aparecen las pruebas, Rafael?
No.
Dígame, profesora.
Dice el estudiante que no le aparecen las pruebas.
Sí, voy a colocarlo en el reporte.
Ajá.
Sí, ella debería tener todo eso.
Y porque creo que esta es la última. Esta es la última clase porque la próxima dice test, final test,
Correcto.
¿cierto?
Voy
Así.
a, voy a mandar eso de una vez.
Ajá. Dale, mi amor. Pues cualquier cosa tú comunícate, habla, no tengas miedo, mami. ¿Ok?
Eh, Jacqueline, disculpe, ¿me puede pasar el número de cédula para poder hacer el reporte?
Ok. 9
Ajá,
763
ajá.
1779.
Ok, lo que no te aparece son para poder hacer los test, los ejercicios, ¿verdad?
Exacto.
Ok, yo voy a enviar el reporte.
Ok.
Gracias, Rafael.
Listo, profesor.
Listo. Ya he terminado, ¿viste, Rafael?
Sí, profesora.
Ok.
Eh, bueno, gracias, profesora, gracias, estudiantes. Si no tenemos más consultas o aportes, podemos dar como finalizada la sesión de la noche de hoy. Tengan todos una excelente noche.
Gracias,
Gracias.
Rafael. Hasta luego.
Por-